This is our story tonight. This story is from Mangareva. Among the islands of Polynesia, there's one island that's the furthest east, and that's Rapa Nui. And then one other island is inhabited, the second furthest east island, and that's Mangareva. There are some other islands that are further east of Mangareva, but they're not, at least in like 200 years ago or whatever, they were not colonized by Polynesians. They were colonized, but anciently. And in Mangareva, there's a story. And there was this guy named Terupe, and he had a daughter named Toarupe. And she married a man named Nauenga. And Nauenga and Toarupe, they had 8 sons. And the 7th son, his name was Tumaiaoia. And the 8th son was Maui-Mata-Varu. Maui with the 8th eye, because he was the 8th of the sons. And Maui-Mata-Varu, his grandfather, loved him a lot, and he did really nice things for Maui. And Maui's older brothers were jealous of him. And one day, his brothers were getting ready to go fishing, and Maui wanted to go fishing with his older brothers. And they wouldn't let him come because they were jealous. And so Maui could see that they didn't want to let him come. So Maui turned himself into a rat, and he hid in the ropes on the canoe. And when they got to the fishing place out to sea, Maui turned himself back into a man. And his brothers, they said among themselves, they said, "Who let this pig on the canoe?" They were saying bad things about Maui because they were jealous. And when they were fishing, Maui asked them to give him some bait to put on his hook. And they didn't want to give him any bait. But the 7th brother, Tumaiaoia, he gave Maui some bait for his hook. And so when Maui threw in the hook, there's this fish, it's called an urua. It's a long fish, a really good fish. And it bit the hook. And so Maui caught this urua fish. And then they rowed up to the shore. They rowed back to the land. As they rowed back to the land, when they got up to the land, Maui's brothers, they asked him to give him some of this fish, and he would not. And he took the fish home and he gave it to his grandfather. And I guess that the grandfather was blind, and he felt the back of the fish, and then he turned it over and he felt the stomach of the fish, and it was a really good fish. And he said to Maui, he says, "My grandson, you've fished up a really good fish. I'm going to have to give you something good." And on another day, Maui's brothers, they went fishing again, and Maui wanted to come, and they wouldn't let him. And so what Maui did is he turned himself into a lizard, and he hid in the canoe. And when they got out to the fishing place, Maui turned himself back into a man. And his brothers, he asked his brothers to give him some bait for his hook, and they wouldn't give him any bait. None of them would. And so finally what Maui did is he tore off his ear, and he hooked it onto the hook, and he threw that into the sea. And when he did, something bit the hook. And so he started to pull, and he told his brothers, "Row to land." So they started rowing to land. And he was pulling on it, and they looked, and they saw, they were so surprised, because Maui had fished up land. He hadn't fished up just a big fish. He had fished up the bottom. He had fished up land. And he was pulling up the land, and his brothers, they were just so surprised, they hollered and shouted. And when they got to shore, their mother came out. She heard them hollering. And she came out, and she looked, and she saw a mountain, and there were trees growing on the mountain, on this land that Maui had fished up. And she was just so excited, she danced. And Maui got up, when he got to shore, he was going to jump over to that island to like tie his rope on it so, so it'd be secure. What happened is hook came off, and the land sank back into the sea, and it was gone. And Maui told his grandfather, Terupe, about it. And his grandfather said, "Oh, my grandson, if you told me what you were going to do, I would have told you first what you needed to do to secure the land. So it's got away. It's too bad." So we've reached the end of our story. Ko hope te yereko.